All right, welcome. This is going to be a video recording for week number 2, and I'm going to go over the learning objectives that we're going to be covering in the course. This is again CSIS 1190, of course, and in week 2 we're going to focus on Microsoft Word. Now I've condensed the Word chapters into chapters 1, 2, and 3, and you can see that in the My IT Lab under the course materials, and you can see here under week 2 we've got chapters 1, 2, 3 right there. Now I would recommend before you start is click on the ETextbook right here and open up the ETextbook. That's this one right here. So I've got it preloaded and it looks like this. It does come up and says exploring Microsoft Office, which is actually has everything in it, including PowerPoint and Access. So, and you can see here you guys actually have access to a lot of different or additional resources that we're not going to cover because we just don't have time in this course. So what we've decided to do in this course is, according to the learning objectives in our curriculum guideline, is provide students with sort of the basics, or the first 3. This would be like an introductory course to Microsoft Word. Most people have used Microsoft Word. If you haven't, this is definitely a good software tool to become very familiar with. And I would say that if you've used Word, that this should go rather quickly. Although I think some students probably don't have experience with tables and mail merges, but that's a good exercise to go through to see how that works. So you can see here it's an introduction to Word and organizing your documents. Again, this is just a really practical way of creating a Word document, organizing it, and how to make it look professional. So you can hand in your assignments, your papers, or when you're at work and you're doing reports, etc. So that's chapter 1, and then chapter 2 is editing and formatting documents. Again, taking that a little bit further and organizing the document, making it look better. And what I always encourage students to do is to try to follow a consistent style when they're editing their documents, so that all of their papers kind of flow with a consistent look. And this chapter number 2 really goes through all of the options of how you can format your document in a standardized way. All right, now it depends on your courses too, because sometimes depending on your research papers, they will have a particular style or font or spacing that you need to conform to, if it's an APA style or what have you. So you can make modifications to that. But what I encourage students to do is try to find a set kind of format style that they like, that looks professional, and they stick with it, so that all of their papers, their work, they have a consistent look and feel to them from a formatting point, I should say. All right, so those are the 3 chapters that you're going to have to complete in week number 2. And so to get started, I would highly recommend is go into your ETextbook and read through the case study, and just quick, you can skim this and see what they're trying to do. They're trying to get you to create basic documents, and of course we're in the work environment, we're constantly building and composing documents. So this is a very, very practical skill for everybody to have. Now we've all done documents maybe similar to some things like this, but what this is going to go over is show you a lot of little areas and kind of features that will really help and make your document development a lot easier. And that's our goal in providing that. All right, so from here, I'm going to let students kind of go through the Word portion, and this will be pretty much a self-paced component. I'm not going to provide any lectures or examples of Word for chapters 1, 2, and 3. My face-to-face lectures will all be on Excel from chapters 1 to 10. So we'll be covering that next week. In week 3, I will be providing my personal lectures recorded in that week's folder that you guys can have a look at next week. But this week, in week 2, we're going to be focusing on Microsoft Word. Now, keep in mind too that Microsoft Word is going to be on the midterm test, and it's actually quite a large part of the midterm. It's worth 8% of your overall grade. So we do value that this is a major component of this course. So you should go through these carefully, because these you'll be assessed on all the learning objectives from chapters 1, 2, and 3 here. And if you go through these, you should have no problem with the online assessment, or the midterm, I should say. And you may remember from the previous video I mentioned that the midterm will be in an assignment format. If you haven't watched that video on the My IT Lab assessments and feedback, you should go back and watch that video and get up to date on how that works. All right, so this is that's the ebook, and I would definitely recommend you guys again going to that. Now let's go into the week number 2 under my courses, under the course materials. So under week number 2, let's open it up here, and we've got 3 audio PowerPoint presentations. This is because it's for chapters 1, 2, and 3. We have 3 videos. We have the student data files. We have 3 simulations, and we have an operating systems quiz to go through. So we have quite a few learning objectives. Let's say your total time to do this would be between 4 to 5 hours maximum if you go at it slow. Probably a total of 6 hours for the entire week. If you think about it, lectures are normally 3 hours, and then students should be spending at least 3 to 5 hours on their homework time. So even if you were doing a face-to-face class, you're probably spending a little less time because I'm not delivering that lecture. Those lectures are being delivered through the audio PowerPoint and the videos for Word at least. All right, so definitely go through the chapter 1 audio and the videos. You should download the data files. When you click on the data file, we haven't done this in a previous video, but when you click on the data files, it will open up and it will show you. Let me just open mine up here. And I'm not sure if it's coming through on the recording, but it extracts and it comes up with all of these files. Now they're giving a bunch of sample Word documents so that you can help organize your files and how to edit them, and etc. Just some of the learning objectives you'll be going through. You'll need these files. So you can get that right here under student data files. And they match up extremely nice with the audio and with the videos. So that it all works together, kind of like in a package. All right, so Word simulation. This example is very similar to the simulation that we did with the operating system. So we can click on this and open that up. All right, here we go. So we're starting off pretty much where we left off with the operating system for Windows 10. So we've gone through the operating systems class for week number 1. Now in week number 2, we're going to carry that on, and we're going to learn the Microsoft Word 2016. So they want you to go through and start up Word with a blank document. And again, the simulations would not be attempted until you've completed the audio presentation and the videos. Those will basically give you the instructions on how to do all of this. Now I do have some students that they start here and they go to the learning aids. So they challenge this. They try to say, well, how much of this do I know? And this might not be a bad way of learning how to do things. It's really up to you on how you want to learn, because there's a lot of different learning styles that students have. And what we're trying to do in this course is provide multiple ways of learning. Some people like to read the textbook and then attempt it. Some people like to have a PowerPoint audio. Some people like to watch a movie. Now some people like to do simulations. So you have multiple ways of doing this. Now, even though I've provided 3 separate ways for students to learn the materials, it's really up to you on how you want to, which method you're going to select. Although with that said, I think it's very important to remember that I will be checking your simulations and your participation. So you should, at a minimum, do the simulations, because I will be tracking that, meaning that if students aren't doing their simulations, that means they're probably not going to do very well on the assessments. So there's a bit of a correlation there. Actually, there's a large correlation between the simulated practice and the assessments or the quizzes. And this would be like one of the quizzes. You guys are not going to have to do any quizzes with Word, but you will have to do an assessment in the midterm for Word, chapters 1, 2, and 3. All right, so keep that in mind. So the reason I don't do quizzes for Word is because I put all 3 chapters into 1 week, and then I get students to do their assignments over the next couple of weeks. So it gives you a little more time to, adjust to, because I'm packing in 3 Word chapters in 1 week, which might seem like a lot, but these are pretty easy chapters. And you can see here, there's only 17 tasks, only 17 learning objectives for chapter 1. So I would really encourage you guys to just go through all those and do them as quickly as you can. Don't rush it, because you want to make sure you have time to absorb it, you understand it. Now, if you look at the simulation here, again, it's got the question down here. You can adjust it. If you hold the control key down and you roll the mouse button, you can also do the sizing, which is kind of nice. Some people like the instructions over here, so I did that by just holding the control key down and rolling the roller on the mouse forward and backwards. That's just a standard Windows feature for zooming. So we can either zoom it this way or we could do it that way. All right, so you can pick whichever you're comfortable with. All right, so that's the sample for the Microsoft Word, and you'll have to repeat that. I'm going to for chapters 2 and 3 as well. All right, so I'm going to just save what I've got there, which wasn't anything. So it'll probably show up that I've got 0%. Let's see here. It's in progress, yeah, because I never even attempted anything. So it just shows I've opened it, but I haven't started it. Now, remember, I will receive all this data for students. So when you do these, it'll show how much it's been completed, how often. Sometimes students do these multiple times, by the way. So if you've completed it and you weren't really sure and you want to remind yourself again, by all means, go back and do the simulation again. I think I've set these for 9 attempts. So I couldn't imagine someone actually going in here and trying it 9 times. That would be a lot. All right, so moving on. In this week, you will have to again complete the 3 chapters, but if you look at the schedule from Blackboard, it does say that in week 2 we have an operating system quiz. So let me go back to the Blackboard course. Let's look at the course outline, and I'm going to go back into the student view here just to make it look a little bit neater. And it says right here that in week number 2 we have Word chapter 1, 2, and 3, and you also have an assigned due date. Between 12:30 and 4:30, you have a operating system concept quiz to do. Now, you've done the concepts in week 1. I want to assess you in week 2. Now, remember, the quiz isn't due until Friday between 12:30 and 4:30. The quiz should take you about 10 minutes, but I'm going to increase the time for people to 15 minutes just to give you guys some extra time. And if you do run out of time, let me know if that's really a problem, and I can maybe increase the time if that becomes an issue. Other than that, there's no assignments due again in week 2. You won't have an assignment due until actually week 3. Now, speaking of assignments, because you've taken Word chapter 1, 2, and 3 in week 2, only Word assignment 1 is due the following week. So you've actually got 2.5 weeks or more to get that assignment, the assignments in. These are pretty simple assignments if you've done the simulations and you've done the videos. Definitely, it shouldn't be that difficult. A lot of students get in the high 90s on these when they go through that. And also remember that your assignments, you're allowed to do the assignment. You can retrieve your feedback, make the corrections to your assignment, and resubmit it. So my hope is that students can go back and learn what mistakes they made, fix their mistakes, resubmit it, and get a higher mark. A lot of students get well into the 90s, if not 100% on their assignments, because you have 2 opportunities to do that. So students do get quite good marks with their assignments. The quizzes, just a note on that for a moment, is that you are given the simulations ahead of time. The quizzes are a small subset of the simulations that you've done in the previous week. So I've provided you with 3 simulations in the week number 1 for operating systems. I take out specific learning objectives on there, randomly pull out maybe 10 or so learning objectives and have you do 10 of those. That's why it's only about 10 minutes to get it done. All right. Hope that makes sense. And that's what your basically is due for week number 2. All right, so if there's any questions, I will be available Fridays at 12 o'clock. I'm on my computer. I'm on my computer most days anyways. But if you have any questions or if you want to stop by, I'm available and we can have a collaborate meeting face-to-face if you have any concerns or questions that you don't want to put in an email. If you just want to meet me, that's another way to do it. Other than that, that's pretty much a wrap for week 2. I will post these videos for every single week explaining what's going to be required. But after week 3, I will be providing my lectures. Now these lectures are probably going to be an hour and a half long on the video, and they will be, again, duplicating the learning objectives from that particular chapter. But I'm going to give it to you in my own personal way and with an example I think that's more relevant to the students. A lot of the examples that the book does, they're not really, relevant to the student. So I'm trying to make them as relevant as I can, as relatable as I can, make them personalized. So I would encourage you guys, although you don't have to watch those, I would encourage you to watch my lectures. It would be just like if you came to class and we did a face-to-face lecture, and that's what those are. So it's kind of like doing face-to-face lectures, except you guys can kind of hit the pause key when you want, or you can rewind and listen to it again until you get it. So I really want to emphasize that. All right, so I hope that makes sense. If not, send me an email, and I'll see you guys in the next video.